Hey man, is everything alright? You look a little downcast. I don't know, dude. These last few days have just been really crazy for me. Things are happening that I don't understand. Like what? Like this echoey voice in my head keeps talking whenever I try to focus on something or do something. I can't make it stop, and sometimes it prevents me from doing my favorite things. Like swimming. It's too cold for that. It's summer! Drinking. Ugh, my liver cries just looking at this.
No, it doesn't. It wants this, I swear.
Or driving after the fact. Whoa, I am way too intoxicated for that.
What are you talking about, man? I am totally fine.
It's getting ridiculous. I'm not really thirsty right now. Oh, come on! Damn, that sounds quite weird, bizarre, abnormal. It really sounds like your life is strange double exposure. What? What do you do? Who are you talking to? I said it really sounds like your life is strange double exposure. They probably spent as much time on that title as I did coming up with the name for this channel. And you know, I'm not trying to be critical of game titles of all things, but I think you'll like what I have in mind for this one. How about Life is Goofy? It's the fourth installment, yes, No One Counts Before the Storm, to the popular Square Enix series, and that's pretty impressive for the first game being released in only 2015. Sorry, what? 9 years! The supernatural episodic choice adventure game throws us into a new role with a new character every time as they explore and investigate, aided by some new power that they discover. We had Max Caulfield in the original, Sean Diaz in the second, Alex Chen in the third, and in the new one, Max Caulfield. Because the only thing better than seeing someone experience life-altering trauma is seeing it happen twice. We finally got the sequel we didn't need, but to be fair, I suppose it does help marketability to focus on one singular main character to be the face of your series, despite the slight sacrifice to originality. Because it is a sequel, it certainly helps to have played the first game before you jump into this one. But I wouldn't blame you if you couldn't tell right away that these two aren't the same character, but rest assured they are. She just had a very much needed glow up.
Shaka bro.
See, you can tell it's a sequel because there's 2 Polaroids in this one. I can only imagine how crazy that's going to get if the series continues on. But back on that title, why is life so strangely strange? Is it the abnormal amount of patience people have to sit in silence while you choose a dialogue option? Is it the unusual circumstance that one person from every diverse minority happens to commune at the same bar? Or perhaps is it Deck 9's magic ability to make Sharpies float in the air? All these questions and more will shortly be answered through our look into the story. Strap on your fucking chastity belt, because who doesn't get horny for a good time travel story?
Police!
No, I said a good story. Most of the game is a glorified movie anyway, so you bet your bollocks the writing is going to hold a huge amount of weight to the game's overall quality. Almost as much weight as I had to sustain while your mum was riding me last night. We're going to have to run through the plot faster than your sister got run through by the football team, because there's a lot to cover, and as much as I'm sure you hate it, I do have some opinions. The game starts in a place looking very similar to my bedroom, where we meet Max Caulfield 10 years after the events of Life is Strange 1. Now she's a photographer in residence at Caledon University, because she's good at taking pictures or something. We also meet Sophia Llewellyn Fayard, the daughter of the university's president, and Max's new best friend, after she realized that blue really wasn't her color. The two of them are here for a shoot. No, not that kind of shoot. Well, at least not yet.
Hail Satan. Edgy.
I don't want to be the one to cry hypocrite, but
She doesn't usually like people.
Yeah. Me neither.
what? Never mind, pack it up. 10 out of 10 game. They go to the observatory later that night with other friend Moses, and Safi lets it slip that a publisher is interested in her poetry book. Sounds like she's got a really bright future ahead of her. Or not. Max has got to deal with the grief, but not really, because she can always just see, hear, or even travel to the other timeline where Safi wasn't murdered, because she can just do that now. In the living timeline, Safi still appears to be in danger of skeletal bovine head smashing her car windshield, so it's going to be up to Max to uncover who means Safi harm. Anyway, if you played the first game, you can probably see where this is going. Max has timey-wimey powers, hence the, you know. Yeah, and using said powers really gives you an advantage in detective work, believe it or not. I mean, I'm sure the FBI would have loved the ability to rewind time when at 8:46 AM on September 11, 2001. Cat DLC? Fuck yeah! Fuck no. I don't know if you guys have watched as many murder mysteries as I have, but the culprit is always a character you know, usually the one with the least suspicion. So you can't trust anybody. Anyone with a unique name and design is going on the suspect list. I don't make the rules. So on Max's quest to investigate, we gotta add to the list Yasmin Fayyad, the university's president and Safi's mother, Amanda Thomas, a bar waitress, Vin Lang, Yasmin's assistant and leader of Abraxas, some secret school society, Gwen Hunter, a literature professor, Lucas Colmenero,
He's a fucking retard.
and students Loretta Rice, Reggie Kagan, and Diamond Washington. Also mentioned is Maya Okada, but she'll be important later. Max travels around campus, snooping and such, learning people's phone passcodes and hacking into them, because that is definitely a number passcode, Max, you dumb bitch!
Men, what's stopping you from dressing like this?
This is probably the point where you expect me to have a skit prepared where I do in fact dress like this. Moses is under heavy suspicion from Detective Vince Alderman for taking Safi's camera, but with some time magic we can sneak it out of his office and comb through her last photos to find... That's it, wrap it up, Max is the killer, whoop-de-doo, what a twist! Also, this is the photo that they went with? Fucking delete this? I'm done. Max rewinds to the time of the photo, seeing herself with the gun, and a storm similar to the one in Arcadia Bay. At the Overlook, Max proves her powers to Moses, Alderman confronts them, but then he's just absorbed by his ghostly self. We'll get to that. Max learns that Gwen cancelled Safi's book because it was all about Maya Okada, Safi's best friend who committed suicide after Lucas plagiarized her work for his best-selling book. Max tries to distract herself from all the craziness with Amanda.
Let's thrash, Jonathan.
Okay.
They go on a little makeup date and then... What were you just waiting for? What were you trying to see? What, you wanted to see them kiss? You want to see two girls kissing. That's gay! You're gay! Max's house has been broken into by, another Max. So she chases her down, saves her life, and boom! Safi. Wait, what? Long story short, Safi apparently has superpowers as well. She's a shapeshifter. I thought this was an interesting choice because technically, thanks to the other games, we know that there's other people with powers in this world, so seeing two of them come together is actually pretty unique. So Safi transformed into Gwen and Lucas to ruin their lives and relationships for cancelling her book deal. She blames everyone for what happened to Maya, Lucas for his plagiarism, Gwen for the false hope in her book, Vin for his portrayal of Maya's character in his statement about her death, and of course her mum, Yasmin, for basically covering the whole thing up. So it's time for justice for Maya by exposing Lucas for the fraud he is at Krampus on campus. I'll give it to him, that's pretty clever. They steal his gun, which he just so happens to have because America. And hijack his rose to tell the truth about Maya Okada. Lucas is done for, but he hammers one final truth into Safi, and she's pissed. Her powers get out of control, she gets into everyone's head, and oh look, a massive storm appears! Wow, this is very unique, because we have a competent writing team that doesn't need to reuse things from previous games to make a compelling climax that was very predictable, don't we? But what could possibly cause such damage? Well, just turn to the most obvious answer. Mummy issues. Safi pleads with Max to shoot her and stop the storm. But they walk into the storm and into some weird space-time warping universe where Max saves everyone from Safi being in their heads or whatever until they reunite. Yippee! Safi goes pretty power hungry and says that she's gonna run away and find more people with powers to fix everything, whatever she thinks that means. And Max has the final choice to stand with Safi when she comes back or refuse her. And so Life is Strange Double Exposure wraps up on Max explaining to the other characters what the fuck just happened. But then they had to go and steal my gimmick by cutting her off with the credits. But what you didn't realize is that we were actually watching a Marvel movie, and so we get a post-credit scene where Safi returns to a nose-bleeding Diamond and she gets her on the superhuman team. Alright, so overall, the story, not terrible. Because it's a video game using different timelines and what happens is ultimately up to the player, sometimes characters know things that don't really make a lot of sense, like Dead World Moses being in on the plan to expose Living World Lucas. If you take it at face value, you can enjoy the basic premise, but I can understand if you'd be a little bit disappointed by the lack of a traditional villain or antagonist, and I kind of expected the writing around the whole time powers thing to be a bit more tight-knit. Having to write around this new power Max has got just kind of adds complications for no reason. For example, the Alderman thing. Why was there a past hologram of him just chilling here? Why did him touching it make them disappear? Not only does that not really make any sense, but apparently after this happens, Alderman's entire existence becomes a non-existent memory. Why do Max and Moses remember him? Why does this plot point never come up again? Is it world building to show the rules of your alternate self in this world? Then use it again. Why did Moses get some grey hair? Why does Alderman's character even exist? What's the point in having the choice to try and save him if there's no choice anyway? Did the writers include him just to create conflict but then write him out because they didn't want that conflict yet? I've always had this problem with choice story games. At the end of the day, the writers have a story they want to tell, and that's about it. Your big choices never affect the climax of the game. What's the point in trying to be friendly to Gwen or Vin if Max is just going to solve the mystery herself because the plot demands it? You know what game doesn't have this problem? Detroit Become Human. And yes, I know not every choice story game can be like Detroit, but give me something to go towards. It's certainly not solving the mystery because Max is just going to figure it out anyway, it doesn't matter what I do.
I understand it now.
Give me a fucking progress bar if you have to, so that when I complete it, I eliminate the calamity plaguing the divine beast and then the final boss has a quarter of its health taken away. Why do I have more choice in a bullet hell than I do in a game marketed for being about your choices? And what about Yasmin? Apparently Yasmin was behind the entire Maya cover-up and book cancellation because she was just trying to... Actually, I don't even know. I mean, with context, I'd assume it's to save her own and the university's reputation, but this is one of those rare things that should have been told, not shown, because it's the antagonist's motivation, and it makes Safi's storm-forming crash out not make a lot of sense. We never hear what Lucas said to Safi. We never see to what extent Yasmin was this heinous villain, at least not to the point where Safi would be pointing a gun at her and actually shoot her. Max's final choice. What's that about? Neither option, of course, will have any substantial consequence on how the story wraps up. You're gonna have to pull out your wallet again for the next game to find out what happens. And finally, there's that fucking post-credits scene.
I've seen nosebleeds like that before.
Oh, for fuck's sake, Safi. First of all, Diamond's outside in winter. It could just be a naturally occurring nosebleed. And she wasn't even doing some superpower stuff to warrant such a nosebleed. And you said you were going to leave Caledon to find superpowered people. You're still in the town! And this was a perfect opportunity to tie all the games together. Have her find Daniel from Life is Strange 2, or Alex from True Colors. Why go with Diamond, a background character from the same game? Why is it that the only time that something strange happens that doesn't require insight from the other games is the same time that had the most potential to actually do something really cool like that? And better yet, it's not even affecting the plot. It's just setting up the next game. Speaking of which, apparently, Max Caulfield will return. No shit! I get it. Writing stories about time manipulation is hard. I just think Alderman could have been written out and the climax could have been more character drama as opposed to the creative liberty that they took with the whole Into the Storm thing. But hey, that's just me. At least we got through the bulk of it, the movie part. But what about Life is Strange Double Exposure as a game? Holy shit, there's so many settings in this game you'd think we'd be customizing a Miata. I sure am glad I have all these options because it will make the gameplay loop perfectly suited to my tastes and I will have no issues whatsoever with the controls. How hard can it be? All you're really doing is moving around sometimes and pressing a button to make sure Hannah Tell works for her paycheck. Press Y to examine. How come, despite the PS4 and PS5 controllers having the exact same layout, and the game being available on the PS5, the Steam version defaults to Xbox buttons and layout? Because of course, when I see the Y button, I should hit triangle. Huh. What's the point in being compatible with these different controllers if you're not going to accommodate for their buttons? Yes, it's really jarring at first, but you do start to get used to it. It helps that the prompts are laid out up, down, left and right, so you know which directional button to press. Unless of course you're playing with a Nintendo Switch Pro controller, in which case when you try to hit Y to look in the upwards direction, you actually have to hit this Y, on the left! How come you can accommodate for the Switch controller of all things, but not the PlayStation ones? The game didn't even release on Switch until 3 weeks later! Also, holy Christ, do not play this on Switch. What the actual fuck am I looking at? Apparently you can circumnavigate this issue by toying around with controller configs on Steam, but I'd figure this isn't something that really should be left to the consumer, you know? But what about the rest of the gameplay? There's the dialogue choices, of course, the camera stuff, and the time shenanigans. So as for the choices, at the end of every chapter they show you what choices you made and the percentage of other players that chose all the other options. I've always fucking hated this. I try to skip it every time. I understand why people enjoy this feature, but from my perspective, all it does is make people think they're super sigma for choosing the less popular option, or it makes you feel like shit when you miss something when you're trying to explore the whole game. Am I gonna go back and try and do that thing? No, because then I just have to replay parts of the game where most of it is the same. which is not fun. I'm all for replayability, but you can't coerce me into it if it's not fun or substantial. Then there's the photos. Sometimes you'll be given the opportunity to take pictures of people or places, just like the first game, except this time, you get the option to use double exposure. What? That's like the title of the game! Has anyone noticed this? It seems incredibly difficult to get a good double exposed photo. This is the only decent one I thought I got, but it kind of just looks like a filter's been applied. And then at the end, Max uses this double exposure feature to separate Safi from her friend's brains. How does that work? Don't know, don't care. How's that? And then there's the time powers. Max can pulse using the right bumper to see and hear things from the other timeline. It works perfectly fine. And then she can travel to the other timeline using the left bumper at very specific spots that look like a group of fireflies. Why limit the place I can do that to these very small areas? I understand that there is potential for the game to break in some way if Max goes to the other timeline in the wrong place, but that could be easily remedied by just having a little pop-up that says, oh, you can't do that here, or Max's inner monologue saying, I shouldn't do that here, people might see me. It'd make it more convenient for the player. It'd mean you wouldn't have to backtrack so much. And then there's the third ability, where Max can entangle an object between timelines. Using both bumpers, she can effectively switch objects between the timelines. For example, a broken coffee mug could be switched out for its non-broken counterpart. This is actually really interesting. It could serve to make some cool puzzles. Maybe there's a rusty key that doesn't work, so you gotta swap it out for a working one. I'm really glad they implemented this ability. I can't wait to see how many times I can use it. Twice. It's used twice. In the entire game. Twice! At this point, I would rather it's just a TV show. Your choices ultimately don't matter, and the Time Powers mystery-solving gimmick works better as a concept than an actual gameplay element. But whatever, they made it into a game because they wanted to. I guess Square Enix is just fascinated by all things superpowered, wacky, and weird. Oh, that's why it's called Life is Strange.
Had my fair share of losing, and I've hung on by a thread.
Superpowers and stories can provide moments of awe and excitement, breaking the monotony of linear storytelling and investing audiences by blending relatable human experiences with extraordinary abilities. It's like blending autism and Rubik's Cubes. See, it's not finished because I'm not autistic. I've always really liked the idea of superpowers in stories that are specifically chosen to deepen character development, where they act as metaphors for personal struggles, growth, or moral dilemmas. And for the most part, the Life is Strange series takes this artistic direction. For example, in the first game, Max Caulfield's ability to rewind time is more than a gameplay mechanic. It underscores themes of regret, consequence, and the desire to fix past mistakes. She moved on, dude. Stop thinking about her. In Life is Strange 2, Daniel's telekinetic powers are explosive and unpredictable, and can serve as a metaphor for the uncontrollable aspects of childhood and his growth in learning responsibility. In Life is Strange True Colors, Alex Chen's powers, well, she's basically an empath. I get the feeling that you really want to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell. It parallels her own journey of healing and self-discovery. She works through other people's trauma as she must do for herself as well. And even in Double Exposure, Safi may as well have spelled the whole metaphor out to us. Her shapeshifting is an extension of her wanting to be the way her mother wanted her to be, even wishing that she could be someone else entirely. But the timeline shifting. I don't really get what it's meant to mean for Max. A power like this could easily be interpreted as one's choice to either accept reality or deny it. I would have expected the big choice at the end to mean that Max either stays in the dead timeline but accepts her reality, or lives in blissful ignorance in the living timeline as if she never had to deal with her friend's death. Think the third semester of Persona 5 Royal. If you know, you know. In the end, she never had to make that choice and it all just kind of ended up okay. And obviously, yeah, I wouldn't want to give Max Caulfield that impossible choice again, but there's an easy fix for that. Use a different character. A new one. There's been a new playable character every installment, including that one. Why switch back to Max now?
Money!
This chapter was going to be about how Max's powers reflected her personal journey, but piece of advice, that's what happens when you choose an essay topic before you do any research. What the fuck? There are two separate timelines in this world. One where I'm a die-hard fan of this series and I've got nothing but praises to sing, and the other one where I made this video. But I reckon if I concentrate really hard, I might be able to merge the two together and maybe, just maybe, we'll have something positive for me to say. I mean, I shouldn't have been surprised. They cook so hard on Life is Strange music every time. There's like this familial feel you get, like you're inside the head of Max Caulfield, and this is what it sounds like. In large part, obviously, to the phenomenal Tessa Rose Jackson and Luciano Rossi, the gentle acoustic guitar, and the almost lo-fi vibes you get. Top tier contenders? Someone Was Listening by Dodie.
Safety in numbers, but I never said I was real.
September by Chloe Moriondo.
Suddenly I ask you to stay.
Under My Skin by New Dad.
You're still under my skin.
And of course Illusion by Tessa Rose Jackson and Luciano Rossi. If you're talking upgrades, well, this is where you should find it. Though, I suppose the bar was set quite low. The textures honestly look gorgeous. It's not hyper realistic or anything, but that's not really the point. They just don't have the kind of money to use like that. The detail in Max's mouth, her eyes, able to convey what emotions she's feeling and what she's thinking. The lighting is spot on, the visual effects are pretty nice, and of course the mocap. Actually really good. They've outdone themselves, cause we ain't looking for any more ragdolls. The cast of characters is very colourful, in more ways than one. I like Safi, I like Gwen, I like Vin, I like Alderman, I would die for Loretta. And they all interact with Max and each other in a way that represents realistic chemistry and just fun dialogue. Plus, all their designs are very good and unique. Though it's a good thing it's set in winter, because if you don't want to fuck with hair physics too much, just slap on a beanie. It works every time. So that's Life is Strange Double Exposure, the choice-based game that'll have you questioning your life choices, whether they basically canonized throwing away your favorite ship, or you wasted your time reloading and picking all the different choices just to hear different sound waves hit your ear hole, you ASMR addicted freak. Good, Bad, and the Strange. Winter snow falls in reverse. Restore life once more. That was a high cue. I've been getting into poetry recently. Thank you for watching.